Good day one. I think I've said before, I've been around a lot of day ones that weren't great, but our guys did a good job. They're playing with great energy and enthusiasm. You know, some early mistakes, but we've also had a lot of time to prep for practice one, so it's going to be about how we can learn and move forward from here. Go ahead and open it up.
Right here on the right there.
Yeah,
Oh, sorry.
I can hear you.
A lot of veterans from last year's team gone, a lot of leaders. What's it been like this year to see some of the new guys, some of the young guys kind of take on more of that leadership role?
Yeah, we're still in the early phases of that, right? And that's one thing that I was hoping to see today. I saw some of that. I saw some guys stepping up. But we have to develop leadership in this team. You know, we're not returning a ton of experience, but we're returning some really talented players. So it's about those guys stepping up, creating leadership, creating standards for our team, and those guys attacking.
Front left, James.
Will you be playing actual football in the spring game, and why or why not will you be doing that when the trend is to not do that?
Yeah, I think it's the best way for us to get better. We're absolutely going to have a spring game, play football in the spring game. You know, you just mentioned new faces. I think that's a great opportunity to create, you know, Otson's one of those places. We have a spring game. It's a game day environment. Creating that environment for those players, the competition that exists in that, and the, you know, just our fans, what they bring to that, I think is a huge piece. So for me, it's the right way to cap off the spring, and as long as I'm here, we'll be doing spring games.
Second row on the left there.
Quarterback's a position you could have gone poorly, you didn't. Can you kind of speak to what you like with the returners and just broadly this group and the competition for spring?
Yeah, I love the group that we got. You know, we got a bunch of cerebral guys, talented guys, some guys that bring different skill sets, you know, in that room. It'll absolutely be a competition. It's a competition at every single position on the field for us. And, you know, competition is what makes everybody better. So excited to see those guys grow, but they've done a good job. You know, we've added some wrinkles this offseason that are a little bit different, and they've done a good job absorbing that and executing it.
Back row or back left, Matt.
When you look at this roster and just evaluate what you have, 22 newcomers, just what stands out? What interests you about your roster for the spring?
Well, just that. There's some great players, but they don't have necessarily the same experience that we've had in the past, or at least last year, right? We had a lot of experience last year returning. So we got to figure out what these guys can do. You don't figure that out in one practice, right? And that's what the spring's for. We got a lot of opportunities to step out in the field and figure out what we have. But I think we're a team that can attack you in different ways, and we got to take advantage of that.
Back right, Brett.
Coach, more than a dozen freshmen obviously on this squad. Just what are you looking for from some of the young guys early on in this, first couple of practices, and what do you see from some of the freshmen in this first day of practice?
Yeah, I'm just looking for growth, right? Don't let your highs get too high or your lows get too low. I talked to the guys just now about if you had a great practice, don't be satisfied. If you had a disappointing practice, don't be discouraged, right? There's opportunities to grow and continue to improve. If we have consistent growth out there in the field every day, I'm going to be really pleased with that.
Middle left, Olivia.
Jaquarian Moore, we've seen on Twitter that he's been vocal in workouts so far. Can you speak to a little bit about his leadership and also what he's doing on the field?
Yeah, we encourage every single guy in our program. You don't have to be a senior to be a leader, right? You don't have to have experience to be a leader, right? But you have to be willing to put yourself out there. And Decorian, as well as several other players on our team, are taking that lead, right? They're stepping up and taking advantage of opportunities to lead. And it doesn't mean that you don't make mistakes too, right? You'll make mistakes at times, but that doesn't mean you can't learn from mistakes and continue to improve. And it's about just the standard and the consistency across our team. So whoever that might be, if it's a freshman or a senior, a junior or sophomore, a guy that's played 1,000 snaps or a guy that hasn't played a snap, right? We're looking for people to step up.
Right here, middle left.
Dan, when you look at Dante more specifically, he's a unique player in his experience. How do you strike the balance between mentoring him, you and Will, and the staff, and letting him figure it out on his own?
I think you're always coaching, right? And I think, you know, within the play and at the practice field, when the ball's snapped, they got to solve problems, right? And then in between, that's your opportunity to coach. But great players want feedback, right? Great players want to know how they can get better. And we've had some guys that have come in here with a lot of experience that want feedback, that want to be coached. So we're going to coach every one of these guys, but while they're out there on the field playing, you got to let them go learn and make mistakes as they happen and learn from those moments.
Right here on the right, Zach.
I haven't had a chance to talk to you about Dylan Thieneman yet. What was it?
Thieneman.
Thieneman, thank you. What was it about him that made you want to get him out of the transfer portal? What have you seen from him so far since he's been with the program?
Well, he's a dynamic player on film, and then when you meet his family, unbelievable family. A guy that is infatuated with football, right, and infatuated with the extra work. You know, there's probably not a day that goes by that Dylan's not in the weight room getting bonus work, doing extra rehab, getting extra film. his intelligence, all those things are really picking up. Establishing some standards for the DB group and how they're going to operate. I think he's done a great job of that, and I know he's not satisfied. So I love having players here that aren't satisfied, that are looking to get better and improve. I think he saw what Oregon could bring him, and I know he's going to be able to bring a lot to Oregon.
Front left, James.
Will you be splitting reps between squads like you have in the past, and how will that impact particularly the offensive line with 3 new transfers?
Yeah, we'll be doing like we have in the past always. I think it's really important to be able to shuffle players, because injuries happen in season. How do you adapt to injuries, right? How do you see other people, other pieces in place as you adapt? So our teams will change throughout the spring. There's times out there you see the first group are on the field, and you have freshmen out there that are part of that first group. There's times that you see a senior right tackle and you see a freshman right guard, right? And I think that's really important across all positions to challenge us to grow and to figure out how we operate with each other.
Second row left, Eric.
Attracted with Coach Douglas and a hiring process, and then just, I guess, how does he fit with the team and also the staff? I know that's really important.
Yeah, I've been really pleased with Coach Douglas so far. The energy that he brings on the field. I think he's looking to coach every single moment. He had obviously some great references with his time with Coach Belichick and some of the other coaches that he's been around. His experience on both the offense and defensive side of the ball. The amount of work and time that he's putting in, to get ahead of the curve. Learning it in the spring is not the easiest thing. He's done a great job of coming in and attacking it and building relationships with those guys. He knows it doesn't happen overnight, so he's working really hard at it. But really pleased with Ross so far.
Back left, Matt.
You always talk about development. I think last year's freshman class, only 2 guys played. How far along has that group come with a year of development? A lot of them were here this time last year for the first time. What stands out about that group, and has anyone emerged?
Yeah, we just had our first practice, Matt, so
Yeah.
it's a little early to say emerge, but we always say if you're good enough, you're old enough, right? And we had some young guys that can contribute last year, but maybe weren't ready for the biggest roles, and I think you'll see some of those guys step up and have bigger roles for our team this year. Again, wherever you fall in the pecking order, it doesn't matter. It matters, are you playing above the line football? And if we have a lot of guys that can play above the line football, you'll see a lot of guys on the field for us.
Back right, Brent.
Coach, I know it's obviously early, but just are there any similarities you're seeing from this core group from last year's team, and maybe what differences are you seeing from them that are maybe positives that you're looking from this group obviously after one day of practice?
Yeah, it's probably too early to assess the differences in this group and last year's group. I think, like I said, I think we have good talent. I think we have hungry players, but it's still early to figure out what's different about this group compared to last year.
All right, Zach.
Known Bear Alexander for a long time. What's it like to finally have him in your program and kind of be coaching him every day? What have you seen from this winter?
Yeah, I'm really excited about Bear. Obviously, it's a guy that's been through transition, but he hit Oregon. He hit it with his feet on the ground and running. Similar to Dylan, he's a guy that's up here every single day trying to get extra football. He takes it very serious. He's a D lineman that's smart too. A lot of times wants to play football almost with a linebacker mentality of being in the right spot, the right gap. Taking ownership of his assignment, and really pleased so far with how he's attacked things.
Front left, James.
Are Jaleel, Kyler, and Matt Bedford going to be limited at all, or are they back to full go?
Yeah, I'm not going to get into injuries, but we have several guys that are working their way back in.
Eric, reminder.
I know you kind of shape every offseason on its own, but I'm curious on kind of how are you utilizing what happened in Pasadena? Is that something you're incorporating into kind of a motivational tool, or what's kind of the messaging around that?
I think life's all about experiences, right? I don't think you pick one experience. I think life's all about experiences. And every day we walk out here, we learn and we grow. And you got to learn from wins. You got to learn from losses. We certainly learned from that one. But this is a new season too, right? That has no impact on our next season. All the wins that we had last year, right? They have absolutely no impact on this next season either. So it's really about focusing on what's next and continue to improve.
Back right, Brett.
Coach, obviously had a couple of contract extensions last week. I just wonder what it means for you to have Tosh and Will inked up for a couple extra years and to have those guys with you on this program for the next several years.
Yeah, very grateful to just the University of Oregon, the commitment that they have to our coaches. I think anytime you can have continuity, I feel strongly that we have one of the best coaching staffs in the nation, if not the best in the nation. And when you're able to have continuity, it gives opportunities for improvement, right? Everybody knows kind of how you do things. But then when there's change too, there's an opportunity to grow there as well. So really pleased that, every single one of our coaches is on multi-year contracts, that they're able to be here, for a long time. And at some point, as success happens, there's going to be growth opportunities for them at other places as well. But right now, I think every one of those coaches is hungry to be here, grateful to be here, grateful to be at a place like Oregon, and I know I certainly attain to that as well.
Back left, Matt.
Your 3 portal ads along the offensive line. Just what did you like about those guys specifically, and just your thoughts of that unit as a whole going into spring ball with some new faces having to step
Well, that's
in?
what spring's about, figuring out really where we're at. I think it's important, wins and losses start up front, right? They certainly start up front, and I think that's been a strength of ours here. We've been a team that can, stop the run, a team that can run the ball, on both sides, and that's really important. It matters when it matters most. So the quicker we can get some continuity, the quicker we can get some experience with those guys, the more beneficial it'll be as we move forward.
Front right, Zach.
You talked before about using the offseason to kind of get out with your family and explore new parts of Oregon. Curious if you're able to do that at all this offseason, or if that's going to be more of a summertime thing.
Yeah, we haven't been able to do, but this summer we'll probably be spending the most time we've spent so far just in Oregon. But really, this offseason so far, it's been about trying to capitalize time with our players and have them over at the house, spend time there. Certainly spend some time with family as well, but spend a lot more of it watching flag football games, piano recitals, and band concerts than traveling.
Front left, James.
Wanted to confirm that Boyle is back from a hardship waiver for 23.
Yeah.
Back right, Brett.
Last year, guys' running back, core had felt like a lot more depth this year. Looking at the roster, just only a handful. Just what are you seeing from Noah, maybe taking up and stepping into that RB1 role, and just how do you kind of, make something work with only a handful of running backs in the back room?
Well, I think we have a lot of depth at our running back position. What you don't see is we don't have necessarily a ton of experience, right? So I think there's a lot of great talent in that room. Have as many scholarship backs as we've had here, and more coming. So really excited about that group, what they can do. But that's what this spring's about, is figuring out who will roll, and it'll always be competition at that position like every other position for us. But the more guys we can get to play winning football there, the better we're going to be as a team.
2 more, front right, Zach.
The practice fields obviously look a little bit different now. You guys were in Austin today. Was that going to be the plan this spring? You going to be in the Mo at all? Is it going to be all in Austin? Just curious.
Yeah, the great benefit is we still have 2 fields that we can use, to our disposal. And I'll say this: the opportunity for growth as a program, it means continuing to invest in the program. And you look out in our backyard right now, there's a lot of surgery going on in those fields, with the opportunities that are coming with new buildings, new practice fields. So that's a challenge that we certainly welcome. But yeah, we still have access to the Mo, still have the opportunity to play in Autzen, so a lot of fields that we can use.
Last question here in the front left, James.
You mentioned Dylan earlier, and you certainly have a couple of other additions still to arrive in the secondary. But what answers are you hoping to get over the next 6 weeks, specifically there when you have to replace all the starters in the secondary? Dan, what clarity do you need 6+ weeks from now?
Tell me what you're looking for here. I'm not sure what you're looking for. I want good football.
How confident do you need to be in 2 deep? It's always in general, but how confident do you need to be by the end of spring as opposed to having unanswered questions for fall camp?
As confident as we can be. I don't know when that happens, when it reveals itself, what it looks like. I think we have a lot of really talented players that can play winning football on the back end for us, right? But that's what spring's about, establishing. I'm not going to walk away with any preconceived notions of what this offseason will tell us, right? But I think a lot of times it gives you answers to what you have to continue to improve as you head into fall camp. I do think we have the people in the back end that are going to help us play winning football and be a team to compete with.
Thank you, Coach.
Appreciate it.
Thanks, Coach.